Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles has arrived, and if you're wondering which of these 4 brothers to have as your commanders, then you're in the right place, because in this video I'm going to be showing you which 2 commanders to have as partners, along with the must-have includes in your deck for maximum power and synergy. And to kick things off, my starting commander is of course Leonardo the Balance. Let's get into it. Leonardo the Balance is a 3 colorless 1 white to cast with a 3/3 power and toughness, and his top ability here is the main focus point of this deck tech. It reads, whenever a token you control enters, you may put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Do this only once each turn. And his bottom ability here we'll get into later in this video, because that's exactly how we're going to be closing games out. He also has partner select, so let's talk about which of his brothers best suits our action plan, which after reading Leonardo you can see is token generation, buffing up creatures and swinging out to win the game. When I first started building this deck tech, I thought that Donatello would be the obvious choice, as he reads, if 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus a mutagen token are created instead. Now obviously Leonardo, like we just said, wants lots of tokens, however his top ability does only activate once per turn, which kind of renders Donatello's ability useless. We don't just want tokens on our turn, we want them on every single player's turn. I'd actually argue that Donatello works much better with Michelangelo, because then you can just focus on food tokens. So that leaves us with just 1 more brother, which is of course Raphael the Muscle. He is a 4 colorless and a red 4/4 base power and toughness, and his top ability reads, double all damage that creatures you control with counters on them would deal. This is the most powerful choice. If the game plan works and you have +1/+1 counters on all of your creatures and you activate Leonardo's second ability, you're going to swing out and win the game. So how exactly are we going to build this massive token army while ensuring that Leonardo's top ability is being triggered every single turn, while keeping our engine rolling with ramp and good card draw and having some insane finishes to conclude the game? Well, they're the next 4 sections of this video, and make sure to stick around to the end because I have the most brutal, insane synergistic finisher for you that is a must-have include for your deck. But before we get there, let's talk about token doublers, because Leonardo wants tokens and he wants lots of them. Yes, it doesn't specify that it needs to be creature tokens, but we are predominantly looking at creature tokens because that's what we want to do: build that massive token army, swing out and win the game. My top 5 picks for doubling tokens were Anointed Possession, Mondrak Glory Dominus, Adrix and Nev Twincasters, Double in Season, because not only will it double up the number of tokens, but it's also going to double up those +1/+1 counters. And finally, I've actually put an instant in this list, Second Harvest, because I like the idea of being able to generate tokens on your opponent's turns, which I'm about to get to in a second, but also because this is a great defensive spell. If your opponents swing out at you and you cast this, you're going to be able to A, trigger Leonardo's ability, which is going to buff up your blocking creatures, but also it's going to give you even more blockers. And yes, of course, none of this really matters unless you're generating those tokens, and yes, of course, on your opponent's turns. So that's a nice segue to lead us into the next category: token generators. These 3 creatures are going to help you generate tokens on each player's upkeep, and therefore triggering Leonardo's ability each turn. And if you get the City's Blessing, then all of those tokens are going to be 3/3 base power and toughness. These 2 instants are going to be helpful defensively, and these 2 spells are effective target removal while generating tokens again on your opponent's turns. And then we have these 3 creatures which all do very different things but help towards our overall game plan. First up, Campbell reads, whenever 1 or more tokens enter the battlefield under your opponent's control, for each of them create a tapped token that's a copy of it. Astra the Endless Web has reach, and whenever an opponent casts an instant or sorcery spell, create a 1/2 green spider creature token with reach. Then Lotho Corrupt Sheriff has, whenever a player casts their second spell each turn, you lose 1 life and create a treasure token, which is really helpful for your game plan but also helpful for ramp. And talking about ramp, Warren Soul Trader is another must-have include. You pay 1 life and sacrifice another creature, in your case probably one of those tokens, and then you get to create a treasure token. Again, you're doing this on your opponent's turns. And if that's not enough ramp for you, then check out these 3 creatures, which all give you different ways of tapping your tokens for mana. With a special shout out to Balin the Haymaker, because this creature also has inbuilt card draw. And we all know card draw wins games, so with that in mind, these next 2 creatures are essential to include in your deck. Benny Brack's Zoologist says at the beginning of each end step, if you created a token this turn, draw a card. Then we have Marnus Calgar, who has double strike, and whenever 1 or more tokens enter the battlefield under your control, draw a card. And then it has its activated ability at the bottom here, where you can pay 6, create 2 2/2 creature tokens with Vigilance. These 2 cards alone offer so much value for this deck in my opinion. You're going to be drawing 1 if not multiple cards per turn. Right, now we're going to Endgame, where I have some brutal but really fun for you to play cards. But before we get there, I have 3 honourable mentions. Mirkwood Backs is basically just burn. Your opponents are going to be losing 1 life every time you make a token. Then we have Kamai of Whispered Hopes, which does 2 things really well. First of all, it's going to add X of any 1 colour where X is this card's power, which hopefully is going to be a lot considering Leonardo's first ability. Then it has this beautiful top ability, which says if 1 or more +1/+1 counters will be put on a permanent you control, that many +1/+1/+1 counters are put on that permanent instead. Which brings me on to my final honourable mention before we get into endgame finishers, which is the Earth Crystal, which honestly does what Kamai of Whispered Hopes does, but 10 times better. The Earth Crystal not only gives all of your green spells ramp, but if 1 or more +1/+1 counters would be put on a creature you control, twice that many +1/+1 counters are put on that creature instead. So now let's imagine we've got the Earth Crystal and Kamai on the battlefield. I'll let you do the maths and let me know in the comments how that even works. Right, now we're going on to endgame finishers. And like I said earlier, we've got some brutal but fun for you to play, not your opponents, cards to add to your deck. And kicking this category off is Raphael Tag Team Tough. This card is super thematic, of course, because he is a Ninja Turtle. What I love about this card is that whenever it deals combat damage to a player for the first time each turn, you untap all attacking creatures, and after this combat phase, there is an additional combat phase. I should say you want to be activating or triggering any of these finisher abilities whilst you have Raphael the Muscle and Leonardo on the battlefield. And you also want to be activating Leonardo's second ability to give all creatures lifelink, trample, and menace. And sticking with the theme of extra combat phases, a Kai Battle Squad is the next must-have include for finishers. It says whenever 1 or more modified creatures you control attack, untap all modified creatures you control. After this combat phase, there is an additional combat phase. I really like this card because a Kai rarely gets played nowadays, and I think it fits really well into this modified creatures deck, as all of your creatures should have +1/+1 counters on them. Now, before we get to that final finisher card, the one that I'm most excited to show you, we have got 1 more additional combat phase card, which is Full Throttle. Full Throttle basically gives you 2 additional combat phases, and at the beginning of each combat phase this turn, you get to untap all creatures that attacked this turn. If you can't tell, I like additional combat phases, but what's the point in having all of these combat phases if you can't get through with the damage? Yes, you could have Crater Hoof Behemoth that gives +X and trample to all creatures you control, where X is the number of creatures you control. But if you want something a little bit more unique and something that will give you the element of surprise, then this next card's going to blow your mind, and that is Aether Shockwave. Aether Shockwave says tap all spirits or tap all non-spirit creatures. And yes, if you're tapping all non-spirit creatures, that does include your creatures. But here's how you're going to play this card. You're going to declare attackers, and before your opponents declare blockers, you're going to play Aether Shockwave, and that's going to tap all of your opponent's blockers, and if you have an additional combat phase, you're going to swing out and win the game. So there you have it, that's the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles deck tech for Leonardo and Raphael. And if you don't know what else is going on in Magic this year, make sure to click on this video right here, because I go through every single set that's dropping this year in Universes Beyond, and you're not going to want to miss it. So make sure to click that video, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.